friends, welcome back to my channel, or if you haven't been here before, welcome. Today I am doing a video that I have been thinking about for a long time. I keep going in my pregnancy updates to talk about breastfeeding, and then it gets too long, and so I just always edit it out. But this is something I really want to talk about, and it's something I really want to record. And I don't know, last night or the night before, I was like, I'm going to do a video like this. And so this is what I'm doing. Today I am talking about my thoughts on breastfeeding after my first baby, because I think my thoughts probably will change after having another baby. And so I'm doing this for two reasons. One, to record my thoughts and how I felt, and two, if there's any other mummies out there who this could be, I don't know, an encouragement to or support for, yeah, I'm doing it for that. So I hope you enjoy it. I'm going to probably ramble a little bit, but we're just going to go. So if you don't know, I am a mummy to two babies. I have a 16-month-old son, and I have a baby growing at the moment. She's currently 29 weeks in my belly. So she's due at the end of October, and yes, I keep saying she because it's a girl. So yeah, but I did breastfeed my son Jack for the first 5.5 months of his life, and then I weaned him onto formula. So my thoughts on breastfeeding after having done it with my son. I started out with what I felt like were really low expectations in regards to breastfeeding. My mum there's 4 of us siblings, and she attempted breastfeeding with all 4 of us. She managed to feed my youngest sister for a year. The rest of us were shorter periods, but she did attempt breastfeeding with all of us. And she had told me a lot about what to expect, you know, that it doesn't necessarily feel natural, that you might get really sore bleeding nipples, that it takes time and effort put into it, and that you've got to get a good latch. And, you know, like, she had really prepared me for it, and I felt like I was going into it with, you know, like, good expectations. My midwife had also given me a DVD on what to watch, and it showed, like, how to latch, and I felt like that was a really good DVD because it showed, like, real mums learning for the first time. So Jack was born, and I had a very straightforward labor and delivery. I only had gas and air for pain relief, and he was born after 3 hours of active labor, so he was a very fast delivery. And I think we attempted breastfeeding within, like, the first hour or two. I can't remember exactly. It's kind of, like, hazy. It was a really nice time, though. Like, it was very relaxed. I do remember feeling, like, this pressure, like, oh my gosh, everyone's watching me, you know, and I have to try and latch this baby on. It wasn't really like that, but that's kind of how I felt. And my mum was there, and my husband was there, and the midwife was there, so actually there weren't that many people. But my midwife was good at trying to get him to latch. I remember it feeling like she was being super rough with the baby, which she wasn't. I think with newborns we tend to be super, like, soft with them, and you do need to be a bit more firm when you're teaching them to latch and you're learning and stuff like that. So it didn't feel natural. It felt odd, but it wasn't, like, a terrible feeling by any means. However, at the beginning, my midwife said to me, it should feel like a tugging sensation, but it should not hurt. And when my son latched, he didn't have any trouble latching on. Like, he was, you know, ready to go. But it felt like a pinching sensation. And I told my midwife that, and she was like, okay. And so we kept practicing the latch, and we tried both sides, and to me it still felt like pinching, but I was a first-time mum, and so I just thought, well, maybe this is what tugging feels like. And so I left it, and I was like, okay, you know, this is how it's going to feel. And that night, he cluster-fed all night on the first night, so I was exhausted. But it's obviously very natural. It's to help bring your milk in, and I did not have any problem with milk production. Like, my milk came in typically, I think it was like the end of the 3rd day, it started coming in. But yeah, he cluster-fed like the first night, and I actually think that's when a lot of the damage was done, because he did not have a correct latch, and the midwife did check him immediately for a tongue tie. But, you know, as a new mum, you're just trying your best, and you're not exactly sure how it's supposed to feel, and I was just concerned that my son needed to be getting what he needed. And so and I continued on. I was using lanolin, like the cream, because my mum had said, get that stuff, it's really good. So I used that, and I used that after every feed. After 2 weeks, I had very damaged, very cracked, bleeding, painful nipples. I was in a world of pain, and it was awful. You know, on top of dealing with postpartum recovery, like your body's going through mayhem, trying to get everything sorted out, you know. And then I was also in a huge amount of pain, which is not rare. Like, let's be honest, a lot of mums go through that. But I went through labor with only gas and air. You know, I delivered a child pretty much fully naturally, and it was like horrendous. But I'm doing that again, and I'm not that frightened of it. But with breastfeeding, I've got to be honest, I do not want to relive that experience that I had. It was awful. I dreaded him latching on, and then even when he was latched, it was still uncomfortable because he was pinching, so he didn't have a proper latch. And by 2 weeks, I think it was a long weekend, it was like Easter weekend, it was terrible, and I couldn't stand it anymore. I was like, I cannot continue like this. And so thankfully, one of my friends lent me her breast pump, and I was able to pump on the side that was like most damaged, and then I used a nipple shield on the other side, just for like every second feed, I think, just to give myself some time to heal. And I actually ended up on antibiotics because I did get an infection on the left side, which is probably why it hurt more than the right side. I also then went to see the lactation consultant, who like checked everything over and said, yeah, his latch is, she said, you're doing everything right, and like she was pretty much, I left that appointment and she said, you just need to keep practicing. And she checked him for a tongue tie. She didn't check for a lip tie, but she did check for a tongue tie, and it was fine. It was just evident that he was not getting a deep enough latch, and I remember feeling helpless in that situation because it was like, I'm in so much pain and I don't know how to make it better. Like, keep practicing, really? Like, you know. Anyway, she was doing her job, but looking back on it now, I can understand why it was such a difficult experience. So I did. I just kept practicing. Time went on. Eventually, I healed. Like, it took a long time, guys. I think it was at least the 2-month mark before I didn't have pain while feeding him. In the meantime, I also had a super forceful letdown, and so he would choke and gasp, and like I tried different things, like they say, lie down and feed your baby in a reclined position to try and help with that. I was told, this is like the ideal situation, you know, they talk about, okay, if you've got a forceful letdown, then let the baby suckle, and then take the baby away, and then like when you can feel the letdown happening, and just like let it all soak into a towel, and then put the baby back on. Okay, so that sounds great in theory, but in reality, you've got this little newborn, and they start suckling, and then all of a sudden you take them off, and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm hungry, I want to eat, and so he would be screaming, and I would have a thick towel, and it would soak through in a matter of seconds. Like, I had so much milk, and like some women might be very envious of that, but for me, it was not a pleasant experience. There was milk everywhere. It was hard. It was really, really hard.